I used to feel powerless until I understood who I am. In this video, I'm going to share with you how I went from poverty to abundance and share with you basically my personal shift into understanding the truth as to who I am and who you are. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, Ph.D. and ordained minister of Metaphysical Sciences, which is the study of spirituality. I am also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious, both available on Amazon and Audible. Ever since I can remember, when it came to really looking for a sense of power or even a deep connection, right, with God, with the universe, there's always been this underlying sense of powerlessness, like feeling like I don't have the things that I know I should have. I don't have the accessibility. I don't have the friendships. I don't have the connections to essentially create the life that I want. Essentially create a life that I want the people that I love to have. And, especially when it came to things like money, right? Finances. One of my first really significant memories growing up as a kid was remembering, just thinking like that money was always available, that you can get anything that you desire. And all I had to do was ask mom, hey, mom, like, let's get this, let's get that, let's get this, let's get that. And nothing over the top, nothing extravagant, nothing glamorous, of course, right? And one day, my mother told me, she said, we're not rich, right? And it shocked me because I absolutely thought we were rich. And now this wasn't one of those traumatic experiences where you are really, impacted in a way that you feel hurt, you feel pain, and you're just trying to cope through it. But whenever I go far back as to thinking about what financial, right, ideas or belief systems or paradigms that were instilled in me, that memory comes to my mind very vividly. Now, to be honest, I'm not somebody who has the best memory. If you ask me what I ate yesterday, I might have to think about it. But when it comes to that memory, I believe I must have been like 12 or 13 or something like that. And I remember that I was on the steps. I was coming down from my room. My mother was going down the steps as well. There was like 2 levels of steps, or one is this way and the other one is this way. So as I'm coming down these top steps here, she's coming down these bottom steps. And then we crossed and I'm sitting on the step and she says, we're not rich, right? And I was like, what? What do you mean? Right. So now this, of course, is not intentional in ways of what my mother said, not realizing the kind of impact it would have on my life. But nonetheless, it did have an impact. Now, if you're a parent, this is a message to you. Always be mindful about the messages you say to your children, because it may be a very well-intentioned message. It may be one that's backed with love and, the desire for your child, of course, to be successful and do well in life. But it also will send and make an imprint on that kid's subconscious. So you have to recognize that when you say something, that child will interpret it in a different way than what you meant it and how how you actually delivered it. So be mindful about that. So anyway, when I think about a sense of power, especially when it came to finances, because that was always the ongoing theme or trait. Whenever I felt stressed, whenever I felt anxious, it was always around money, never anything else. Never in relationships, never in friendships, never in health, never in, fitness, never in love, never in spirituality. I was always one in all those areas of life to feel a sense of progress, of growth, of understanding, of trusting the process and going on with, learning and growing and seeing the growth, But when it came to money, it was something different. And so I finally figured out, though, how to get from a point of feeling a sense of powerlessness because, right, I'm not rich. At least that's what I was told. And that's how I perceived it, as something that was locked in as a truth, to recognizing that, in fact, I am abundance. Was in basically the path of spirituality. The discovery that I made throughout my spirituality was one of really transmutation of the understanding as to, one, what my mother truly meant, and two, what it is that I truly am, you know? So you have to recognize that there is a point for you where you may feel powerless, but if you continue on the journey, no matter what it is that you're feeling, if you're recognizing that there is something that I need to learn, something that needs to shift, if you're recognizing the journey, you're not truly like giving up to or succumbing to this one limited belief system or paradigm, and you're continuing to move forward, then eventually you will make a breakthrough. For me, it was entrepreneurship. Initially, it was get a good job, right? Get a good career, become a computer scientist, become a physical therapist, right? Those are the things that were fed to me by my mother when I got into college and things of that nature. My dad was pretty much like, survive, be happy, very chill. I guess most guys can be that way. Very like, just be happy you're surviving, be comfortable, get your needs met, find a good woman, live your life, But my mother, on the other hand, she was a little bit more ambitious. She was a nurse. She had high, goals and achievement for herself. And that's what she wanted from me, And so because I was living predominantly with her, that was something that was passed down to me. And so, of course, naturally, as a parent, you tell your children in our generation, go to school, get a good career, take a career that makes money. And so what happened then is, for people of my generation, we went, got a career that makes money, right? But then there was a shift because times change. And that being the case, people got these careers, but you can tell they're not happy. They're not fulfilled, And that's very, very popular in my generation. And unfortunately, that leaves a lot of us feeling stressed, feeling unfulfilled, feeling miserable, feeling depressed, feeling just a sense of lost, right? Feeling completely lost in life. And I knew for me that wasn't going to be the case, because as soon as I got to college and I said, okay, I'm going to do computer sciences, got there and I was just like, I do not want to be stuck in front of a computer for the rest of my life programming. Because at that age, at that point, computer technology was a little bit different, right? We were the ones doing the programming. So it was very, very much about sitting in front of the computer hours and hours and hours. That's not who I am. So I knew that. Okay, let me try speech therapy, right? Speech pathologist. Let me get into that. What? Medical terminology? I have no idea. I was completely intimidated. I shut down. I said I didn't want to do that. I didn't even know what it was, right? But I knew that my mother said, this is a good career for you to go into. Eventually, it all makes sense. After 1 year of college, I flunked out, right? Didn't go to classes. I had no motivation because none of the things really touched me, and they never spoke to me. Moving forward, it was about trying to make money, trying to figure it out. That's often the life of a 20-year-old. You're trying to figure it out, and you're feeling the pressures of life and feeling like you're supposed to have it figured out. By 21, by 25, you're supposed to be married, start building a family, so forth, so on, blah, blah, blah. Went back to New York, started taking on these different, odd trades, learning how to be a painter, painter in terms of painting walls, things of that nature, good salary. Okay, but not something that I really want to do for the rest of my life. That's another mistake, thinking that if you do something that you have to do it for the rest of your life, when I could have just did it in the meantime until I figured things out. Again, it goes back into feeling powerless. When you recognize you have the power, you recognize that you get to decide to embrace something in the moment and understand that it's okay to change your mind or discover something else eventually later on. So decided, okay, I don't want to be a painter. What do I want to do? Okay, mother and sister, obviously you can see they were my counsel, my advisors. Oh, maybe you should do hair. So I got into being a hairstylist, barber, cutting hair, right? Did it for a few years. Cool. Got bored with that. Wasn't fulfilling. Maybe you should get into massage therapy, massage therapist. Maybe you should get into acupuncture, acupuncturist. Went to school for acupuncturist, didn't finish. So finally, throughout all this time, spirituality has been the common theme for me as far as studying it, as far as being intrigued by it, having a calling for it, but not really taking ownership of it as my purpose and not really connecting the dots as to how I can create a means of, financial freedom. Because I'm only thinking about money, not what it is that I want to do in order to make money. This is where the power comes in. Recognizing that you are equipped with everything you need to make the money that you desire, right? Power is about recognizing what you have already, utilizing that to your best of your ability to create a particular result, to create a particular, materialization, to manifest a particular thing. Usually for us in this civilization, it's money. Really, that means a lifestyle. That means a way of existing that resonates with who you are. The more money you have, the easier it is to do that. Not necessary to have money to do that, though, right? But money makes it more simplistic, you see? So my belief about money, though, was that I had to pick something that makes money rather than let my consciousness, my intuition recognize, right, what it is that I'm talented at, what I'm passionate about, right, what I have skills in, to use that as a means of making money. You see, now you have to recognize that your gift is for you to actually fulfill, to actually project and share out to the universe. You have to recognize that you have to awaken, right, to realizing that money isn't separate from you. This, again, is what we're talking about. The power is about you. It's not about anything else. It's not about somebody else and what they're doing. You see, a lot of times when we think about money, we think about what somebody else is doing and how they are creating their money. That is not your path. That is not your journey. And you're assuming it is because you're not feeling empowered. You're assuming their way is the right way, when in fact, your way is the right way for you. Now, you have to have faith in discovering what your way is. The breadcrumbs, the clues, the echoes are already within you. They are your passions, your beliefs, your talents, your curiosity. That is the money. That is the frequency of financial success, freedom. You have to trust in yourself. So it's important that you recognize that money is simply an expression of energy, the energy that you put out, right? The energy that is emanating from within you. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings, your emotions, your desires, your talents, your gifts. Those are all energy, expressions of energy. You see, do not neglect those aspects of yourself. Understand that they are the things that are going to create the way in which you wish to live. So you have to make an inner shift in going from victim to creator. Okay. Most people could say victim to conqueror. You can say conqueror if you want to, because you're really conquering yourself and those inner fears. You're conquering the ego. But let's just say victim to creator, because it's a realization that you are a creator. It is a realization that you're meant to create a particular thing. And so once you take ownership of that, you recognize that this particular thing is already within you, calling you, beckoning you, begging you, pulling you. But your ego is so distracted by social media, by TV, by your friends and family that you're being distracted and pulled away from your true purpose in life. For me, had I recognized while I was a teenager entering in high school, if I had recognized that spirituality as my purpose rather than just a means of connecting with God, right? If I looked at it as a overall overarching broad purpose of everything, then all the other things as far as, going to school for computer science, speech pathology, hair, massage therapy, acupuncture, all those things, though they may have been necessary for this, for this timeline of my existence, they are not necessarily for the totality, for the true essence of my purpose. You see, because spirituality, teaching, learning, sharing is a part of my purpose. It is who I am, right? It is my consciousness's nature. And so if I had identified that by recognizing my own power, then I would have been a lot further along in this journey. But this is not to say and get into a space of regret, not at all, because I'm completely happy with my purpose. I can imagine easily if I had changed any of that, my life would have been completely different, and I enjoy my life. The children that I have would be completely different or non-existent. Can't have that. The partner that I am with may be different, and I can't have that. I don't want that. So the point is just simply recognizing that now, in this very moment, if you are feeling powerless in your life, if you're feeling powerless when it comes to money, when it comes to your desires, you have to basically recognize the mindset. You have to recognize that you are no longer available for lack, and that you're only available for abundance, for success, for prosperity. You see, and your actions is to really recognize the person that you truly are, right? That's the person who is truly recognizing their power, your divinity, your nature as a creator, adapting those habits that you can see in your mind's eye of that person doing, recognizing that new identity, right? Which is essentially your true identity, setting those new boundaries, right? Boundaries that keep you focused and grounded in the trajectory of your desire, your purpose. Then that's when you make the shift of going from powerless to powerful. And that's what this is all about. So you have to remember, just like I did, that I am abundance. Money, though, is something that we can tangibly identify, recognize, feel, touch, share. Abundance goes way beyond that. Abundance is the frequency by which we attract the money, by which we embody the state of financial success, abundance, right? Wealth. So it goes beyond just the physical. Don't think of yourself as simply a piece of fabric, a piece of paper. Recognize that you are more than that. Recognize that you are the thing that prints out the paper. You see, that is absolutely more valuable than the paper itself. That is where the power comes in, right? You are the mechanism. You are the machine. You are the system. You are the vibration, the frequency of that thing that actually prints money, and ultimately the thing that creates and cultivates, curates the life that you want. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. So once you recognize that you're not chasing money, right? Because remember, the bigger part of my life was me chasing money by picking whatever industry, career that I heard makes money instead of simply owning my own talents, my own, passions, my own gifts, and then using that as a medium to attract money, to bring in money by simply giving and sharing that gift with you, sharing that gift with the world, with the universe. That is essentially how you go from powerless to powerful. Recognize your gift. Your external life is always trying to reflect your inner story. So when you recognize the story is the source of all the things you're experiencing, if you're experiencing a lot of debt or money issues, you have to look within. It's not the universe. It's not the world. It's you. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Don't feel shame. Don't feel guilt. Feel empowered by it. Feel that, hey, you know what? I can change. It is your very nature and your essence to change based on what it is that you desire at the moment. So when you change your story, essentially, that equals changing your life. And that's what I want for you. I want you to live a life that aligns with who you know and who you feel your story should be, or what you feel like your story should be. Be mindful, take ownership. And when you do that, then everything else comes into place. You see? So take ownership of who you are. And once you do that, then that's when you experience the true power, the true essence of who you are. You have all the power. Just simply taking ownership is how you access that power. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, get access to this free ebook, and so much more. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.